Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Thursday. It is match day finally. Arsenal taking on Bodo tonight in the Europa League in Norway, looking to make it 3 wins out of 3 in the group stages. A victory that would see them take a firm grasp at the top of that group ahead of the back-to-back games with PSV, which are to come. Tough looking game though, in a very difficult place to get a result. Bodo's results in Europe over the last, however many seasons prove that. As I've said in previous videos, the 6-1 win against Roma was a very sort of a headline making win, wasn't it? Suddenly they launched them across Europe, that result last season. I'm certainly not expecting Arsenal to lose 6-1 tonight, but they are definitely in for a difficult game. Mikel Arteta has been speaking about that artificial pitch and the surface they're going to be playing on in the build-up to the game. Go over a few of his comments, look at some other things that he's had to say ahead of the match, which gets underway 5:30 PM UK time tonight. I wanted to start with sort of looking at the predicted 11 for this one. It is very difficult. I've always said it on these videos. When it is Premier League, you kind of know, give or take a couple of players, who's going to be playing for Arsenal. With Europa League, it is very, very difficult. I think this one's difficult, as I've said in previous videos this week. Sort of there's a couple of key positions where you're just not sure what he's going to do. Is he going to be able to find a way of resting Granit Xhaka, Gabriel, Martinelli as well, who have all started every single game this season? I think maybe one of them will play. I reckon possibly Gabriel, just because Arsenal don't really have another left-sided option at centre-back unless you play Tomiyasu and Tierney, and play Tomiyasu as a left-sided centre-back, Tierney as a left-back. The only issue with that, while Zinchenko's currently out injured, I'm not sure Arteta would really want to risk playing both of those players in the same time, given that, you know, if the worst happened and they both picked up an injury, when you've already got Zinchenko out, then you really are in trouble ahead of that game against Leeds at the weekend. So predict 11 time, this is what I think he might go for tonight. Goalkeeper, we know, will definitely be Matt Turner. He'll be in goal. I think we'll see Cedric for the first time this season tonight. I'd be surprised if he doesn't play Cedric. So I think he'll be at right back, and then Rob Holding will definitely be centre back. And I'm going to say Rob Holding and Gabriel as the two centre backs for this one, which we've seen in Europa League so far this season. And then I'm going to go Kieran Tierney at left back. Potentially Tomiyasu could play, but I just feel that if Zinchenko's out, and the way Tomiyasu played last weekend against Liverpool, I think he's probably in line to start against Leeds on Sunday. So yeah, I'm going to go Kieran Tierney at left back. Midfield, this is the key one as well. You know, what do you do with Granit Xhaka? Started every single game, so important, obviously, but it feels like this is the time to rest him. So I'm going to go Sambi, obviously as a holding midfielder. He'll play the Thomas Partey role. And then I think back in Norway, did the press conference yesterday. I just wonder if we might see Martin Odegaard from the start this time, alongside Fabio Vieira. So slightly, potentially more attacking midfield than we've seen so far this season, replacing Xhaka with Odegaard. It'd be kind of like the formation, the system we saw last season towards the end of it, when at times he'd use Smith Rowe and Odegaard in the same game. Think of the win at Stamford Bridge towards the end of last season. So I'm going to go Sambi, Odegaard and Vieira as that midfield three in the 4-3-3, and then up front, obviously, I think, as we've seen so far in the competition, Marquinhos will be on the right, Eddie Nketiah will certainly be as a central striker, and then I think we're going to see Reiss Nelson. That's what I'm going to go for. Gabriel Martinelli obviously is an absolute machine. He's a live wire. He's tireless. He seems to be able to run forever, but he's got to get a rest at some point. So I think Martinelli will be able to put his feet up on the substitute bench at the start anyway tonight, and Reiss Nelson will come in on the left-hand side of the attack. I thought Nelson did well in his little cameo last week. I was really surprised he didn't start in that game at home, but I just think with that game against Leeds on Sunday, that you've got to look ahead to that. You can't, and I'm just not sure you can risk Martinelli given the amount of games he's played. Because if you think he's definitely going to play against Leeds, there's no way Martinelli's not going to play against Leeds. If he plays against tonight, and the same goes for Xhaka and Gabriel, to be honest, one of them is probably going to happen. They're going to end up playing 5 games in about 11 days because they'd have played Spurs, Bodo, Liverpool, Bodo, Leeds, all in the space of 11 days, I think it is, which would just be pretty mad. So, yeah, I think that's the predicted 11 I'm going for tonight. Turner, Cedric, Holding, Gabriel, Tierney, Sambi, Odegaard, Vieira, Marquinhos, Nelson, Nketiah. Let's see how wrong I am at 5:30 PM or about 4:30 PM when the team news gets announced. Obviously, there's no Gabriel Jesus. As I said in yesterday's video, Arsenal decided not to take him. He didn't train yesterday. He got a bit of a battering against Liverpool, didn't he? Certainly, again, he knew he was going to wake up next morning after that game feeling pretty battered and bruised. So he's been left behind. Mikel just said we felt that everything he's been through in the last few weeks, that it would be better for him to stay at home. I'm told there's no concern for him ahead of the Leeds game. He will be okay for that. It was just purely a case of giving him a little bit of time off, a little bit of rest. Remains to be seen. Arsenal have kept the travelling squad well under wraps for this game. Remains to be seen if anyone else has been given a rest and just have stayed at home rather than going all the way over to Norway for this one. I think it's a right move of Jesus. Absolutely, I'd have done it with a few other players as well. Personally, I think I'd have left Granit Xhaka back in England and a couple others as well, because just a flight, you know, it's not the shortest journey over to Norway, and then you play tonight, you fly home early hours of tomorrow, you get to Colney, probably about 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning they tend to, if they're flying home straight after the game tonight, which they tend to do, although I'm not sure, I haven't double checked it. They maybe they'll wait till tomorrow, but I doubt it. They tend to fly straight out. You get in at 4 and 5 in the morning, you get no sleep basically, do you? You go home, they get a bit of a rest, might have to go in for a little bit of a sort of fitness check in the Friday afternoon at London Colney, and then Saturday they're going to be travelling up to Leeds. It just doesn't, you know, it's just that takes a lot out of everyone's bodies. And so I think for some of the players who are really, really key in the Premier League, who are definitely going to start ahead of that Leeds game, it'd just be a wise move to have left them in England. So we'll wait and see. Mikel gave nothing away. He was asked about it, you know, have you left anyone else other than Jesus at home? And he said, we've left a few who are injured. You'll find out tomorrow. Now, obviously, we know that there's no El Neni, there's no Smith Rowe, no Zinchenko. And no Jesus. So we'll see if anyone else has been left behind. Some other things Mikel spoke about in the press conference yesterday at the game I thought was interesting. He didn't go into the incident really about what happened at Liverpool, you know, the sort of the Jordan Henderson and Gabriel incident that's being investigated by the FA at the moment. He was asked about it. It's understandable he wasn't going to talk. He just said, it's something I don't want to touch. It's in the FA's hands now. I'm not going to get involved in that. He was then asked whether he supports his players' versions of events, and he said 100%. The big thing I think for tonight for Arsenal and how they're going to get on with this game is how they adjust to that pitch. It's obviously not a dreadful plastic pitch like the days gone by you used to get. It's going to be a decent AstroTurf surface, but having said that, it's not going to be grass. It is very different. It's a big advantage for Bodo. That's why their results in Europe are so good. That's why the likes of Roma went there and got absolutely turned over. Arsenal are going to have to adjust that. They did it recently, fairly recently. It's about 5 years ago now. Arsene Wenger was still in charge when I went over and played Graham Potter's Östersund in Sweden. I was over there for that game. And they coped with that well. They got a couple of early goals and that settled them down. They ended up winning, I think it was 3-0 they won in the end. Obviously, there's not many players there tonight who are going to have experience of that. Maybe Granit Xhaka is the only one who's left from that around that time. So, but it does show it can be done if you can get down there and adjust. Arsenal do have those sort of surfaces back at London Colney. They have one in the Dome at London Colney, which I'm sure they probably would have been working on ahead of this game. Although Mikel Arteta said they weren't. I imagine they must have been, because it kind of makes sense, to be honest. Mikel was asked about that pitch, and he said, obviously everybody is aware that that there are a lot of things that are different. The speed is different, the way you can use the grass is different, and we will have to adapt to that. We know that, and we are here to win the game, and we are sure we know we're going to play on that pitch. Injuries are the big thing because it is different, no doubt about it, and you know you get a lot more. The impact of running on that pitch is not as much give, certainly, as on a grass pitch. And he was asked about his worry over injuries. He says, we don't know. A player can get injured on an artificial pitch. He can get injured in a training session. Obviously, what we do have to do is protect the players as much as we can. But at the end of the day, we know we've got to play, and we're going to have to put 11 players on that pitch. So he knows it's going to be a difficult situation for Arsenal. It's going to be a different situation for Arsenal. It's just about adapting and coping with it as best as possible. I think the injuries thing is certainly going to be weighing on his mind. You look at some of the players, say a Kieran Tierney, for example, who we know has not got the best injury record, has only just come back from a recent injury. You're probably going to be a little bit worried about him perhaps on that pitch. Even Odegaard as well, who's just come back from an injury as well. Do you really want him playing on that pitch? It's something that they're going to have to think about, and I'm sure they have thought about. But at the end of the day, like Mikel said there, that whatever happens, they've got to put 11 players out on it, and they've just got to deal with it as best as they possibly can. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. I'm sure you've seen the video that was doing around on social media. It was taken from a clip. I think it was a video piece he did with a jeweler somewhere, like some executive jeweler, and during that sort of little mini documentary thing or whatever it was, he was asked about Arteta in it, and he made a couple of comments. It was just after he'd left and gone to Barcelona. He made a couple of comments saying that Arteta has to have young players because he can't deal with big players. He can't deal with big personality. So he has to have young players who are basically going to be yes men. That was what Auba was sort of hinting at in that video. That it went live at the weekend and it immediately got picked up and started doing rounds on social media, clipped up and just showing that bit. Auba responded to it and he said he's aware. I'm sure you've seen the tweet. He said he was aware that the video was doing around. It was something, his feelings were still running high because it was just after he'd left for Barcelona. He then said he was really happy with how Arsenal started the season, blah, blah, blah. Mikel was asked about it in his press conference yesterday, and he just said people are free to discuss what they want. He wasn't going to get caught in a slanging match with Aubameyang. I thought it was quite interesting what Aubas say. I'm not sure it really rings true with me because you look at, sorry, you probably hear the birds outside the house going absolutely mad at the moment. They're in a big ruck. Yeah, it kind of, I'm not sure it rings totally true. I think, yes, he obviously wants a young squad. I'm not sure that's because they're going to be yes men and that he can't deal with big personalities. You look at David Luiz, for example, and you have to say he's had a much better career than Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. 1 miles more, massive personality. Arteta got on very well with him. Yes, he ended up leaving, but the pair of them got on really, really well. And Arteta, he was one of the big leaders in Arteta's changing room, and so there was no issue getting on with him. I think for Aubameyang to sort of say that, I thought it was a bit low, and I understand it. If it, he clearly was, his feelings were running high a little bit. He was probably still a bit emotional, a bit hurt about how everything panned out at Arsenal, as he said in his tweet when he sort of not apologised, but he made it clear why he said what he did. Because deep down, I'm not sure he really believes it. I mean, look, what happened with Aubameyang happened because he wasn't disciplined enough, because he didn't meet the sort of requirements that Arteta demanded from his captain and demanded for his players. And when you look at that change room now, as Mikel said yesterday in his press conference, he's never been happier with the change room he's got now. He's got everyone who's bought into his way of thinking. Everyone is sort of going by the rules, and everyone's happy. And it's certainly, and the results are showing on the pitch. So I don't know. I thought it was a bit low by Aubameyang, but then I can also see from his point of view, he was obviously a bit disappointed. He was still a bit hurt with how things have panned out at Arsenal, and maybe got caught up in the moment a little bit by what he said. And he has come out fair play and explained that as well. And obviously, we'll see what sort of response he gets, what sort of reception he gets when Arsenal take on Chelsea in only about a month's time. It's going to add a little bit of spice to an already spicy match when Arsenal take on Chelsea. So looking forward to that one. All right, that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. Obviously, I'm not in Norway, as you can see. I'm at home. But I will be obviously watching the game and covering it as usual. So keep your eyes peeled for all the updates as Arsenal take on Bodo later tonight. And yeah, have a great day. I'll speak to you soon.